They're getting a little grainy.
Hello and welcome to Sports Opinion, the weekly sports talk show on Channel 18. My name is Dirk Keller. Right here is my buddy Pat White. Over there on the far side is special guest Rob Howe from Scout.com. And next to him is Pat Harty. Pat, you're becoming a regular
I'm not even
on
a guest
Sports
anymore.
Opinion. No.
Like Joan
No.
Rivers.
You're going to go on the graphics.
Let's not forget Earle of Pearl Murphy is here. Earle, good to see you again. It is his show, after all. It's only the longest-running public access TV show in Iowa City history. Did somebody say history? Yes.
Probably in Iowa.
Could be.
Yes.
Could be. We don't know how long it's been running for sure, but we know it's at least 25 years. And I've only been here for maybe half of that, a little over half of that. Joe Murphy's been here the whole time, too. Joe's the guy behind the camera, behind the lights, and
He said no.
he's shaking his head. Before we get going on the show today, we're going to talk a lot about Hawkeye football recruiting. Signing day is a week from today, and we've got a couple of experts right here in Rob Howe and Pat Harty. First and foremost, I think I want to join all of these guys together in wishing former athletic director at Iowa, Bump Elliott, a happy 90th birthday. That's coming up on Friday, I believe. Is that what?
Yes.
Yeah, Friday. And we talked a little bit about that last week with Phil Hattie here, and or was that 2 weeks ago? I can't remember. But Bump is nothing short of a living legend, and he deserves all the accolades that go along with turning 90. Earl knows all about that. Mm-hmm. And I want to wish he and Barb a very happy day on Friday and every day from here on out. Bump, we miss you at the Monday Morning Quarterback Club and would like to see you and Earl sitting there at our table once again. It's about time.
Yeah.
So anyway, happy birthday, Bump. I guess first thing we want to get going on is the week that was for Iowa men's basketball. Last week they started out being ranked for the first time in how many years, guys?
They were ranked last year.
They climbed up to number 10
they were?
They
last
were
year.
10th last
They got
year
up to
at
10th
one
last
point.
when they
Dude.
beat Michigan.
I guess I've forgotten about that.
Then the bottom.
Then the bottom fell.
Until the season went downhill fast.
Okay. Well, we do know that last week was the first time in history that all three of the state university schools here, Iowa, Iowa State, and Northern Iowa, were ranked at the same time. And that went up in a puff of smoke at Wisconsin. Maybe one of the most humiliating beatdowns of the Fran era. I don't know. I think one of the most humiliating beatdowns in Hawkeye basketball history, actually.
And nobody seemed to care because of the Woodbury-Dan Dockich drama. It seemed like it all got kind of lost in the shuffle.
Well, I cared. I was just stunned at how many things went wrong in that game. Every bad bounce, every poor shot, every bad decision, it just seemed to
I would
snowball.
probably disagree with you that it was humiliating. I mean, it was a bad game. We didn't play well, but Wisconsin's awfully good.
Yes, they are.
Yes, they are.
They're probably a Final Four contender.
I agree.
Just like last year.
And so I don't think it's an embarrassment to get beat by somebody who's that good. It was embarrassing to lose by that much. Humiliating, I think, would be too strong. Like
Kind of like Dan
like
Dakich's words.
Kirk and Gary Barta disagreed over whether
Disappointing and unacceptable.
or unacceptable. Yeah,
Which word did Kurt not like?
he didn't like unacceptable.
Unacceptable.
Unacceptable. Okay. Well,
And I don't think the next time Gary called it unacceptable when we talked to him the next
No,
time.
he changed
Backtracked.
his language.
I think he and Kirk had spoken since then, and Gary
Gary picked up on it during the press conference. That Kirk didn't like that.
did not like that word.
so I'm guessing that Rob and Pat, you'll be at the men's game this Saturday when
Rob will
Wisconsin.
be, I will not be.
You
I'll be
won't?
watching it on TV.
Okay.
They only get one press pass. Murph will be handling it. I will be watching it, though. It'll be interesting from TV watching what Dockich does, because I think
Yes.
Dockich is hoping that he becomes part of the story. I'm
He-
guessing.
He will become,
Well,
He's
I think
already
stu-
part of the story.
Well, if I was fans, I'd ignore
unless he
him.
apologized.
Let's
I was the-
revisit what Dan Dakich said last week at Wisconsin. He called Iowa center Adam Woodbury, gutless and cowardly when he poked the eyes of two different Wisconsin players in the second half. Fran took great exception. Head coach Fran McCaffrey took great exception to those comments after the game and demanded an apology. And he hasn't gotten one yet. So, guys, I guess what I'm asking is, you guys know that before these Big Ten games, the coaches usually meet with the TV play-by-play and color commentator.
They'll get it all smoothed out. Don't you think they'll handle it PR-wise? They'll shake hands. I think by the time the game starts, it won't be a big issue, other than to the students and some fans.
Yeah, that's what I think.
But I think Dockich wants the attention.
And Fran's got a press conference tomorrow
Yeah.
at 2, and I would hope that they would just get it out of the way then, that they've heard, he and Dockich have already talked about it. Hopefully Dockich is man enough to give Fran a call and talk about it, smooth it over, get it out of the way, have him apologize to Woodbury and his family if that's what he chooses to do. If he doesn't, he doesn't.
He can easily do, he should have already, but he could easily do one of those non-apology apologies by saying, I'm sorry if I offended you,
Yeah.
or if I'm sorry if I said something that you disagreed with.
I think with a lot of commentators, he wants to be the center of attention. I'm not
Well-
going to knocking him, but that's his personality.
ESPN must want him to, because certainly they know about this,
Well,
whoever
that's why they're
decided
doing
to
it.
send
Yes.
him
You know what
back
the E
here.
stands for? Entertainment, and that's what
Well,
their
yeah,
number one
that's
thing
right.
is, and putting him there is going to drive ratings.
I knew as soon as that game was over that ESPN would have him back here in Iowa City.
You
just
said the
knew
same
it.
thing.
You knew it. There was no way they weren't going to put him back here. And I think Dakich would be smart if he did make some form of apology.
But the guy, the highway patrol
Oh.
lieutenant, who
Well, you,
was way
explain
out of
this.
line.
Yeah, explain this to the
Well,
viewers.
some guy up in
A state trooper.
Northwest Iowa, he's a lieutenant in the patrol, tweeted out that he hoped there was a sniper in the crowd who would shoot Dakich in the head.
In the head.
He was driving him crazy.
A headshot.
Well, totally inappropriate,
Yeah.
out of line. He should be disciplined.
Oh, he
But he
will.
called Dakich last week to
Right.
apologize for
Right.
it. And
And Dockich tweeted something that he had talked to him and
yes,
said, hopefully he doesn't
said
get
hoped he didn't
disciplined.
get
Right.
disciplined.
Yeah, I did see that.
Yeah.
But the
Well,
students
that-
will still be
Oh, the students will be.
alive and
And
well.
Dockich does a thing during one of the timeouts in the game, it's usually in the first half, where he goes out on the court and, diagrams a play or tries to explain
On
what's
the
going on.
court.
Yeah, on the
If he
court.
does that to the, south end where
They'll
those
be
students
booing him.
are,
They'll
they're
drown
not
him
gonna be
out.
able to hear him.
And he'll love it, though. He'll love it.
Yeah.
He loves the attention.
I don't think he's going to love the attention he gets at Carver Hawkeye
I don't
Saturday
think.
morning.
I think he will.
I don't think so.
I think it's going to be brutal.
Well,
If he-
I don't think if they're booing him, I don't think he'll mind. I think,
Oh, I think
But
it's going to
here's-
be worse
here's
than
the
just
problem.
booing.
They're going to need to post security behind him, because there'll be people, there's an aisle right behind him, and occasionally people mug behind it anyway.
Yeah.
you know,
There'll be people, students, fans.
I don't think anyone's going to attack him or anything. You
No.
can imagine that,
Let's hope
but,
not.
but
It's not
no,
a restricted area behind them either, is it? People
No.
can walk
Well,
freely by.
there's a rope, but it's.
Okay.
unless Billy Packer was working it.
Yeah, if you want him, you can get at him.
We made the mistake
Or
of walking
we
behind
get,
Billy
Get
Packer.
Ron from Des Moines to come down in retirement now that
Sheriff
he's
Ron, yeah.
demonstrated that he can escort people out.
Not the quarterbacks out of there.
Well, they've usually, Wayland Security usually posts one sleepy,
Oh, They
elderly,
can't stop that.
overweight security person there. And I just know somebody will say something and go overboard. You just know it. There are a lot of Hawkeye fans who are really upset with Dakich. And here's another thing, too. Dakich is it Dakich or Dakich?
Dan Dockich.
Dakich. I mean, I remember when he played for Indiana, and I never thought he was that good. But
No, he was pretty good.
He was pretty good, but he wasn't that good.
He was a good defensive, physical shooting
Yeah.
guard. Not very skilled,
He could
but
shoot.
He's got a son who plays for Michigan.
yes.
Yeah.
Now, how would he feel if one of the color commentators on the Michigan
Good point.
game
Well, of course.
came up and said that about his son, called his son cowardly?
Well, his answer would be his son would never poke somebody in the eye on purpose, which he apparently thinks Woodbury did.
He's assuming that, though, and that's
Yeah,
the...
no, he
that's
is, absolutely.
And he's an analyst, so if that was his opinion, fine. Don't
Right.
call the kid a coward.
Right.
Yeah,
That's, I think he went overboard there.
Yeah.
I mean, he's fine having an opinion on
Sure.
it, but,
Sure.
I mean, it looked bad. I saw the video.
The second one especially.
Second one looked bad.
The one against
The first one.
Well,
Kaminsky.
the first one where he rubbed his head,
No, that was the second one he rubbed
That
his
was
head.
second one.
That
was
was,
stupid.
he rubbed the head of Kaminsky.
right, was that the second?
Nigel Hayes, he was just playing in-your-face distractive defense, and
Right.
I just think his finger,
Adams
his eye.
handled himself well, too. I saw some videos from after the Purdue game.
I thought he did
where
too.
Oh, he's a good kid.
He was asked about
He's
it,
a good
and
kid.
Yeah.
he
I
didn't-
think I think told you last week that after the Ohio State game, where I tweeted, my wife says old men on Twitter are dangerous. May be right. But I tweeted, Aaron White and Adam Woodbury had great games, Dan Dakich not so much. That was where he made the mistake.
Did he respond to you?
Yes, he tweeted back. And he called me an old man. He said, "You old guys are tough to please. What didn't you like?"
Yeah.
And I tweeted
He's
to him.
very thin-skinned for
Was that the
Twitter.
game where he called Aaron White,
Yeah.
Andrew White?
Yeah.
Repeatedly, not
And
just
said Roy
once.
Marble was
Said Roy
dead.
was dead.
Yeah, he did not have one of his better
But-
games.
Hopefully he preps better for this.
So I tweeted him after the Wisconsin game and chided him. I said, you really crossed the line, and you owe Woodbury, who's a good kid, you owe him an apology. And I tweeted him again after the highway patrolman apologized. I said, now that ought to be your guide. You should do the same thing.
Any response?
No, he hadn't responded.
He was on Cedar Rapids radio the day after
Yeah.
that, and he didn't back off
Not
at
a bit.
all.
Not at all.
Not a bit. So, okay, pregame, the coaches, do the two coaches meet at the same time
No.
with the analysts? Okay. So, they're meeting with Fran. How tense is that going to be? And where do they meet? In the locker room? Do they meet in the media room?
I don't think there's any fixed area where they meet. I think a
No,
lot of it
sometimes
just
they meet out on
happens.
the court,
Just what
or
happens.
Shoot around, or
I don't think it's going to be that. Fran's pretty, don't you think it's going to be pretty civil and they'll get this thing worked out? Fran doesn't want this thing to be a distraction and an eyesore
No, he
during the
doesn't.
game. He wants to just get that thing taken care of. I think the students will do their booing and what have you, but I just don't want
Well,
Dan
Fran wants
Dakich to be.
ESPN in the arena anytime he can get it.
Sure.
Yes.
So he very much doesn't want it to be a distraction.
Earl, if you're Fran McCaffrey, and you're meeting with Dakich before the game, what's the first thing you say to him?
Hi, loudmouth.
That would be a good start.
But that's my thinking too, is, you were wrong, and you still haven't apologized. And before we go one step further, I want you to walk out of this room and go apologize to Woodbury right now. That's what I would say. I'd be strong-willed about it.
I would too.
I think,
would too.
I think Fran's gonna naturally be defensive of his players, and he's already
He has been.
admitted it, yeah. And I wouldn't let it go. I wouldn't act like that's no big deal.
A loudmouth?
Yeah.
It is a big
Well,
line.
but that's his job.
Okay.
He's an analyst for a national sports and entertainment network that wants eyeballs.
Attention.
Because that sells the products that
And he
get
does a good
advertised.
job. He's got.
I think he's a good analyst.
I do too for the most
I do
part.
too.
I just think
I do too.
I
sometimes.
think the on-the-court demonstrations are kind of hokey.
That's
Oh,
really
yeah.
cheesy.
Oh, that's hokey.
That's as bad as interviewing like Greg Popovich at the end of the first quarter. Why do they?
I've
have-
seen that.
Why do?
Some of it is while the game is going
I
on.
know.
Right.
Why did, I mean, like
Right.
when they interview Kirk at halftime of an Iowa game. I mean, why?
Yeah.
Do we really need to know what Kirk Ferentz is feeling after one half of?
We already
football?
know what he's going to say, which is nothing.
No, I know. Those interviews drive me crazy.
Same here.
Yeah.
Well, I would, if I were Fran, I'd be real firm. I'd voice whatever I'm going to say strongly and say, we're not going to talk another minute until you apologize to Woodbury.
And I could see Dakich playing to the crowd and like giving Adam a hug or something in front of everyone. I think Dakich is going to play to the crowd.
after that thing with Aaron White, the next game, I think it was before the Wisconsin game, he took photos with Aaron
Yeah.
and corrected himself and tweeted those photos.
Really?
That's
out.
what's going to happen.
Made
Something like
kind of
that.
made light of him messing up.
He'll do something like
I think
that.
the story out of Saturday is going to be that he apologizes, water
Case
under
closed,
the bridge,
yeah.
move on. That's my best guess.
And here we are talking about Dan Dakich, and this is one of the biggest games of the year for
Yeah.
Iowa. I mean,
I predicted, I get together with a group of friends every year before football and basketball, but we get together just before the Big Ten season starts and make our predictions for basketball. And I predicted this game we would win. And I still feel,
I wouldn't be stunned if
we
they
got
won.
it depends. It depends if Aaron White plays or not.
We got a shot. They're still playing without their point guard.
Point guard.
Does anybody know?
That's
how-
right.
Senior point guard.
how
That
he
makes a
feels?
big difference.
Yep.
White.
Say that again?
Yeah, I mean, his status is still up in the air. Aaron White, that's.
They won't
tomorrow.
discuss it publicly.
I'd be
What?
surprised if
They
he
won't
doesn't
discuss
play.
it publicly
Me too.
because they don't want Bo Ryan to know.
And he will have had a week to heal from what basically is it sounds like a deep shoulder contusion, a bruise is what.
Well, it's more,
Stink.
it's spinal and nerve related.
I'm guessing they're lucky they didn't have a midweek game. I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I'm thinking he'll
Yeah.
be okay. He's still got.
I'm thinking he'll play.
Yeah, he may not.
I've
be.
never had a stinger.
No.
I've
It's
had-
Have either of you?
I have for football, they're not fun.
It's
Is
more
that
of a
right?
But they
football
usually go
injury.
away, though. A stinger hurts for a while, then it goes away. I mean, if it did some nerve damage or whatever, that's hard to say.
Well, my understanding is a bruising of the nerve.
Yeah,
And it's the nerves located in the spine.
lots of times with a stinger, you go numb. He
Right.
didn't seem to go numb. His was just all pain.
No, it's not necessarily the spine. Depends. Nerves go all throughout
He
your
was-
body, and every one is individual.
Bruised
And so,
twice, wasn't he?
Well, they hit him in the,
He came back in and then immediately felt it when he
Yeah.
went for.
Okay,
bruising.
that's-
I'm surprised they let him back in.
Same
Fran
here.
talked
Yeah.
about that Monday, and Aaron thought he could go again. I don't think they really knew the extent of the injury, and Fran talked about it on Monday on his teleconference and said, I didn't know this, but there are different grades of stingers, kind of like different grades of ankle sprains.
Or
And he said, this is-
concussions,
right,
yeah.
and this was severe. So they were gonna just give him treatment through today. He wasn't gonna practice Monday, Tuesday, and today, and then give it a go on tomorrow to see if, Fran said he's probably gonna be in pain at least into next week. It's a matter of how much he can handle.
And today's an off day for the team, correct? Wednesday?
I don't know what it
Not
is. this
necessarily.
week. It varies.
They took one day off.
Yeah, and I thought I read where it was
I
gonna be
don't know which one it
Wednesday,
was.
but I don't know. I guess that doesn't matter. It's still a big game. Wisconsin is still a tough
It's a very
matchup.
big game.
oh, it's a huge game.
What did you think of Woodbury and Olashaney? Oh, and that's the other thing. Olashaney
He's wearing-
yesterday was
wearing a
wearing a boot on his foot.
I think it's precautionary, don't you?
It's kind of what I've heard. They're just trying to keep pressure off of it. It's-
Something about an ankle,
Yeah, and that he'll play.
turned in practice, maybe.
it's mostly just
As far as we can
precautionary.
tell, he didn't do anything during the Purdue game.
No.
'Cause He
Other
played
than rebound his missed
played his
shots.
butt off
Yeah, he
He
did.
did.
in that second half.
One thing we don't see very often is Adam Woodbury and Gabe Olashaney in the game at the same time.
Looking small
You
compared
know,
to Isaac
They
Haas.
did look small.
Yeah.
Kid is
That
huge.
Haas is huge,
He's got talent, too.
He's a big hoss.
and he's only a freshman.
I know.
That's scary.
He moved very well.
Those moves in the lane.
can
were-
jump?
Yeah, he's a good player.
The Purdue game was disappointing. As soon as Aaron White went out, I mean, let's get back to that for a second. The start of the game, another classic Hawkeye start. They go off, have a nice run to begin the game, and was it 10-2, 9-2? Something like that to start the game, and you're thinking, all right, feels good, looks good, keep it up. And then White gets hurt 7 minutes into the game, and everything changed.
His injury, I mean, it was so severe and so obvious that is bound to have had an effect on the rest of the team. I think our senior leader is on the bench, and,
And they might be thinking broken collarbone
well, that's
after
what
the
I was
year.
thinking.
That's
It
what I
thought.
certainly
Yes,
looked
yes.
like a broken
The
collarbone.
way he kept
The only reason I stopped thinking that is if it was broken, they would have taken him, he would have left. I don't think they would have had him sit there with a broken. Wouldn't they have taken him to the hospital if they had?
Yeah.
So that's what made me
Well,
think.
not necessarily to the hospital, but probably.
They would have
but
done something with him.
I was also surprised. He said the way they determined it wasn't a broken collarbone was they pushed on it.
Which could break,
Well, don't they have some x-ray machine in the trainer's
did
room
seem
that
kinda
can go
weird.
check it?
but it was disappointing that Utah didn't play better. They needed him to step up and
Yes.
and he just had an off day.
Yeah.
He's had a lot of good games, but my big thing with Jared, and I've been saying this a lot, I just wish he would attack the basket more. He seems to be doing a lot of this stuff.
Falling back.
Falling back with a lot of his
Yep.
shots. and
Avoiding contact.
I'm not sure why.
He's a skinny guy.
He's
Yeah.
developed a Josh Oglesby shooting technique, too.
Yeah.
The one where you kind
Falls
of,
back.
yeah.
They played it.
Which hadn't worked for him.
Yeah, well, yeah, Jared was at 2 of 14 in that game, and to overcome that and Aaron being out, that was just too much.
The common thread for me in the Wisconsin and the Purdue game was shot selection early in the game, and Peter Jock and Jared, I think, took quick shots in the shot clock in both of those games. And we've seen it throughout this season. When they struggle on offense as a team, it affects the other end of the floor. And when they're going well, they're sharing the basketball and getting the best shot.
And getting
working for
back
the
on
best
D.
shot And getting back on defense. But I thought in both of those games, they let that get away from them and got out of what they do well.
And we saw in the Purdue game, late, we saw Mike Gasell do what he hasn't been able to do for a long time, is drive into the lane and either put up a shot and score or dish off. He scored a lot.
And he had very few shots blocked. I don't,
He had one
one,
that I remember, and that was a massive block.
If that Mike Gazelle showed up every game, we'd be challenging for the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Don't need to be an all Big Ten, first or second.
He was incredible.
Yes.
driving against these huge guys.
Yeah,
He was still
good.
getting it to the backboard without it getting blocked.
Some of them, I didn't know how he did it.
And he was the only guard really doing much. They're just not getting much from shooting guard.
And that's what's killing the Hawks
When you say the shooting guard
offensively.
position's just killing them right now.
Yeah, I think Clemens is probably their best option right now. He hit a big three
He did hit a
against
big three.
Purdue, and he plays defense very well.
Yeah.
One of the better
And he can
on-ball
handle
or
the ball.
best on-ball defenders. So it's hard. It'll be interesting if Aaron doesn't play, what type of matchups Fran will go with. Does he put Ewell in there as a similar player to Aaron White? Does he go with the two big guys like you were talking about? Is Clemens in there with Gazelle and Jock? And small?
He tried both against Purdue. He tried a small offense. He tried the bigs. Nothing worked.
I think he will go with the smaller,
Do you?
yeah.
Wouldn't
Well,
surprise me if Clemens.
My
that
guess
would-
is he'll start Clemens, see how well that's working, and if he'll change to Ewell or, well, probably Ewell. But I don't think he'll play both Woodbury and Olashini at the same time. He hadn't done much of that.
No.
With Clemens, you can ball pressure Bronson Koenig, who's moving over from shooting guard to point
Yeah.
guard. If you can just make it hard for him to get the ball up the court, that's a start.
Yeah.
That helps on
Good
defense.
point.
It's
You
just
know,
the
what I
matchup
think
on
we
front.
do-
It's up, yeah.
Kaminsky and
What do you do?
and Hayes and Decker. I mean, that's
Oh,
a
they're-
tough
those
matchup
are
without
three
White
NBA
being
players.
in
So,
there.
yeah, is Kaminsky going to go out to the NBA this
He's
year?
a senior.
He's a senior.
Oh, he is?
Yeah.
He's a-
Decker will go
Decker?
out. Decker's a junior. He'll go out this year. They'll both be top 10 players.
Okay.
And if Hayes, do you think if Hayes went out, would he be a first-round pick?
He's a sophomore. He probably needs another year.
I think he does need another year.
Yeah. I'm sure they've got people waiting in the wings at Wisconsin.
Well, what they have is
Orion always
shooters.
seems
They just,
to.
everyone who plays for Wisconsin can
Who was
shoot.
the guy that was coach at Iowa?
For-
Gary
Very
Close?
Yeah.
He's still up there.
At Regina too. Did he coach just
Yeah.
one
Coached
year?
at Regina, and then
Yeah.
you want, imagine going from Regina to Wisconsin. That's a promotion, isn't it? No knock on Regina.
No. Who goes from high school to Big Ten? I mean, not many.
Jerry Faust went from high school to Notre Dame, and we know how that turned out.
Well, you know who else went from high school to the Big Ten?
Bob
Frank
Cummings.
Lot, no,
No,
Bob.
the guy with the statue up in Madison,
Barry.
Barry Alvarez.
that's
He was at Mason
Went from
City.
Mason City to Iowa, but he didn't become head
Not a head
coach.
coach, no.
No.
He was a linebacker coach, a little
Yeah, that's-
difference. But no, you're right. Hayden got him his good break, and
Well, Reese
I used to
Morgan
go
from
with,
high school,
There's another one, Reese Morgan.
but not as head coach.
we like to ask Barry, Rob and I, every time we see him, you owe Hayden Fry a big debt of gratitude. Always like to.
I used to go to Shrine games with Barry and Kurt. And it was a real kick, because you have a different personality.
Barry was a great recruiter. I mean, when he was here, he was a great recruiter.
Yeah, and we were sitting there, and I had the program, and he said, Barry said, "Who's number 41?" And I found
Bryce Pop.
Bryce Pop, and he said a few cuss words, and he said, "Are you sure?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "He's the best player I've ever seen." And that's
He got away.
Was that in high school?
Yes.
I don't think they offered him.
Oh, they
no,
didn't?
no,
Iowa didn't offer
No, we
Bryce.
didn't.
He was already signed with
Oh, no,
UNI.
Yeah, he went to Northern Iowa.
Yeah,
And then he went to the NFL.
yes, and
He had a heck of a career.
Didn't Reese Morgan coach him at one point?
I know he coached Dan Hennings,
Maybe that's the one I'm
the
thinking.
Yeah,
1987.
at Benton Community.
At Benton Community.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we'll see what happens Saturday. Saturday morning, 11 a.m. on ESPN. It's one of those black and gold games where, depending on what section you sit in, you have to wear a particular color. We'll see how that
Those look
turns
neat.
out.
When they do those right, I think those are
Yeah,
kind of neat.
Yeah,
It's
Yes,
a little tougher in the arena.
people just never.
And the weather's supposed to be fine, isn't it? There's no,
It's going to be cooler
but no
Friday and Saturday.
precipitating. Okay.
Iowa women had a signature win.
Oh, boy.
That was something to behold. Number 15 Nebraska came to town, a team that Iowa has never beaten in 8 tries since they joined the Big Ten.
They had better players.
Oh, they had that one gal, the Terrio point guard, looks like olive oil.
She does
From
kind
Popeye.
of, doesn't shoot like
I
a
saw her up close, and she is not.
I said that to my wife, Shelley Duvall, who played
Yeah,
that
yeah, she
for
looks
us.
like that.
Movie, that's
Yeah.
we were thinking the same way.
Skinny,
Jack's wife
no
in The
muscle
Shining.
definition whatsoever.
Could shoot though.
And man, oh man, that game. I mean, the first half, it was a tale of two halves. Iowa couldn't hit anything. I mean, they were missing layups in ways that I've never seen people miss layups before.
Especially those layups.
Yeah. And Nebraska jumped out to what, a 10-point lead right away?
Yeah.
And it just kind of stayed that way throughout the first half.
8 to 10.
And it was one of those late night games, 8 o'clock start. I had the kids, and I hated to do it, but I had to drag them out at halftime and just get them home and get them
You
in
were
bed.
talking about you'd like to maybe take your son, but you just can't. It's too
Nah.
late.
We're just a couple blocks from Carver Hawkeye, so it's not a big deal to leave at halftime, go home,
But
turn
for
on
an
the
8 o'clock
TV.
game, if you take your kid, you're tucking Alex in, what, 11 o'clock at night?
Yeah.
If you're
It's
lucky.
just too late,
If you're lucky.
which is unfortunate.
Yeah, and the crowd reflected it. There were only about 4,500 people there. They were loud.
Which for an
Well,
8
that's
o'clock
a-
tip-off,
that's a
that ain't
good
bad.
crowd for a weeknight
Yeah.
game.
That's not bad,
one of
yeah.
our better crowds.
What a turnaround in the second half. I told my kids as we left the arena, I said, I think Iowa's going to win this game yet. Because you just don't see an Iowa women's team shoot that poorly an entire game. You knew that something was going to change. Some shots were going to start falling. You just didn't know if Nebraska was going to ease off the gas. And what a second half. I mean,
Just her off was tremendous.
yeah, well,
Especially at the end.
Yes.
not just her, but
Well, I thought Chase Coley made a huge contribution. She had 4
Who?
points. She was huge.
Chase
Coley,
Coley,
the
oh,
freshman
freshman.
center. They needed someone to come in there when Doolittle was out, and she gave them a presence inside. I mean, she made that left-handed little hook shot off the
Yep.
lane. Those were huge points.
So did Christina Buttonham.
Yes.
She only made 1 3, but she played, I think there was close to 10 consecutive minutes.
She looks like the kind of player, if she misses 10 in a row, she's thinking number 11's going in. She
I
plays
like
with a
her
lot of
game
confidence.
I wouldn't be surprised to see her starting next year.
She's got a lot of
I
spring in her. I
expect
mean,
it.
no, she does. She moves well.
You know, Bethany Doolittle went out after just 4 minutes in the first half with 2 fouls, never played again in the second half. And yet she,
In her defense, that was not a strong
Oh,
officiating.
no.
crew.
no.
I thought her third foul they gave her really early was a
Yes.
touch foul, too.
Was that the charging call, or was that the
No,
fourth
it was
foul?
a touch foul just on something that, it was like, she got her third foul like a minute into the second
Yeah.
half, but Lisa
She did.
had to keep
Well,
her
in
in.
her fourth one, she didn't touch the purse. She had her arms
Straight up.
forward, which is not a good thing
Oh.
to do. No, she wasn't straight up. She had them like this, but she didn't touch the shooter.
No,
They
and that
called-
gal just
called a foul.
ran into her.
Yeah.
So she's turned into a good player, Doolittle. I mean, she's
Well,
really
look
developed.
what she did in overtime.
Yeah.
And the announcers on TV, I don't know if you saw the replay, but they said she looks fresh while everybody else looks tired.
Well, there was a reason.
Yeah.
Exactly. She sat out the whole game.
Good win.
She only
both
played
of them.
4 minutes in the first
Yeah,
half.
she didn't play much more than that in the
was fresh.
second half.
What are they now, 16-3?
The Hawkeyes, no, they are. I'm sorry, yeah, 16-3, 7-1 in the Big Ten. They were virtually tied with Nebraska. They were 1 game ahead in the Big Ten standings going into that game, and that was a significant win. A win you have to have at home against a competitor for the Big Ten title. So now they've put distance, a 2-game spread between them and Nebraska and Minnesota, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
And the
Minnesota's
top 3
tied.
coaches in the conference are
Yeah.
all Iowa natives.
And-
Maryland, Iowa, and Nebraska.
I thought Nebraska was really well coached.
Well, Connie's a good coach.
Yeah, she's from Ankeny.
Yeah. Is she?
Yeah, the top 3
Yeah,
top
yeah.
3 teams in the
Oh,
Big Ten are
that's what
coached by
you're-
Iowa natives, yeah.
Maryland, of course.
Maryland,
Yeah.
Lisa Bluter, and Connie Ori from Ankeny.
Yeah, Connie played high school at Ankeny
I think I forgot that.
and college at Creighton.
Yeah, she was a really good player.
Well, one thing too, and if you were at the game, you probably didn't notice it, but when Whitney Jennings made that second free throw, and you just knew she wasn't going to make both. I don't know if she's ever made.
Oh, I
two.
didn't know that.
I did. I did.
I mean, I know her, so my goodness, that's a lot of pressure.
A lot
Yeah.
of people would have
For a
missed both
freshman.
of those.
And she made that second one. The camera goes over to the Iowa bench, and Lisa Bluter went right to Whitney Jennings and said, "Great job. You could read her lips. Great
that's
job. You made the
One of
important
the things
one."
about Lisa's coaching that I so admire, and it was true, what was the game before Nebraska?
Michigan State.
No. Michigan.
Oh, Michigan at home.
That I noticed it especially. She's smiling before the game, everybody's nervous, it's a big game. And she comes over and sits on that stool in front of the 5 starters, and she's just grinning and smiling, and talking about having fun. And just a very impressive style.
Did you guys watch the end of the game on TV?
Nebraska game? Yeah, I watched it from start to finish.
Did you notice during the team huddles before the overtime period began, the cameras went to both benches and they showed the players on each team and the coaches. Everybody was smiling, laughing. I mean, it was like, golly, this is going to be great fun to go
It's
overtime.
one of the differences between men's and women's
Yeah.
basketball. You don't see a lot of smiles in men's basketball. You do in women's.
I'm telling you, down the row at each bench, everybody was smiling. What's the gal? Oh, Terrio for Nebraska. Big smile, laughing, yucking it up with her friends. And nope, it just didn't seem like anybody felt any pressure. And I was really impressed with that. And then, of course, Bethany Doolittle, she and Disterhoff, Allie Disterhoff, took over in that overtime. That was really something to behold. Now, they've got a tough schedule. The women, they've got a Thursday night game at Northwestern. And there's no TV for that one.
Yeah, it's the BTN computer
yeah,
thing,
yeah.
which I forget what they call
It's
it.
a-
BTN to go.
You have to pay, no, not to go.
No?
Something else.
Don't you pay?
The one that you pay,
Yeah.
you have to pay an access fee.
Yeah. And then, if that wasn't enough, they've got to go to number 6 ranked Maryland, undefeated in the Big Ten. That's a Sunday game at 3 o'clock, just before the Super Bowl begins, on ESPN2. That's going to be, I hope, it's going to be a heck of a game. As we know, Maryland is very well coached. Stacey Freeze,
Very athletic.
oh my, yeah. So I'm really looking forward to that one. It'll be a nice prelude to the Super Bowl for Hawkeye fans, anyway.
I want to mention something else about Whitney Jennings
Please.
as a freshman that tends to go unnoticed. She gets assigned to defend their senior point guard, Laudermill, who's incidentally one of the quickest players that will.
Wow.
Is probably the only player I've seen this year that's quick enough to get around Whit. She got around her a couple of times. But
Repeatedly.
senior point guard, she goes 5 for 15 with Whit Gardner. Whit has no turnovers. She handles the ball in every offensive possession as a true freshman. She had 4 assists and no turnovers, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
And a great defensive effort. And that play that drew the foul to go into overtime, they practiced. And they knew exactly what they were going to do. Logic inbounds it to Doolittle, just above the free throw circle. Doolittle pivots, looks. She's got players on both sides. She finds Whit at about center court, and Whit drives in. And the instructions are, don't worry about, there's 4.1 seconds left when they inbound the ball. The instructions are, don't worry about the clock, I'll watch it, and I'll make, from Lisa, I'll make a decision as to whether you should go ahead and take the shot or whether I'm the only one that needs to worry about calling timeout. You just execute the play.
She did.
And she did.
And she said,
Ontario's the one that came in and tried to block the shot. She came from clear across the court and is several inches taller and got a lot longer arms than Whit has.
Yep. And
Very-
Lisa
very
said
good.
she didn't even draw the play up on the board. She said, we practiced it so much.
Yeah, they know
Just
what,
told them, here's what we're going to run.
well, they have very few set plays. but their inbounds into the game play is one of the ones that's set.
It was a thing of beauty.
They've
And,
always been
it
good
was
at
important.
developing point guards and post players. And that's the key,
And
especially to in college basketball. Those are so important, those two positions. But,
And
from
that's true.
Camille Whalen to Sam Logic to
Jamie Cavey.
Jamie Cavey, I mean, a lot of,
Who's that?
Part of the post player development is Jan Jensen.
definitely.
She's really good.
Who's the black center for Michigan?
Goree.
Gory.
Like Sinitia
She-
Goree. She was
Quite a
good.
player.
She was good.
Yeah, she was very good.
She was pretty much unstoppable.
Yeah.
So they've got a big task this week on the road. Quickly want to mention that the Hawkeye #1 undefeated Hawkeye wrestling team.
Actually, they're number 2 now, according to TV.
It depends on which poll you're
Okay.
talking about. If
'Cause
it's the coaches, basically there's the difference between the two wrestling polls, there may be 3 or 4 actually. One of them is basically a dual team poll.
Okay.
And the other is more of a tournament team poll.
Okay.
But regardless, these two teams going into the wrestling meet, it's Friday night, 6 p.m. at Minnesota. I'm guessing that's at Williams Arena. I don't know if they'll move it
Yes.
somewhere else, but 6 p.m. on the Big Ten Network.
I don't
number
think-
1, 2 ranked
Sure it's
teams.
on?
Yeah, absolutely positive. It's
I've
on.
seen an advertisement for it, yeah.
Yep, it's a big one. This is the biggest dual meet of the year for anybody. And if you break down the individual weight classes, there are a lot of really interesting matchups that'll, come
First
to
one.
fruition.
Starts out really good.
Gilman,
Yeah.
it's going to be tough, up and down the lineup. If you go strictly by rankings, Iowa should win 6 out of the 10 matches. But it never goes that way, especially on the road, especially at Minnesota. Expect some upsets. Expect a very entertaining. Minnesota is not one of these teams like Okie State or Iowa State that's going to just hang on the edge of the mat and counter when you shoot. They are going to be always moving forward. It's one of the things I like about a Jay Robinson coach team, and this is going to get real interesting. So tune in there Friday night, 6 p.m. on the Big Ten Network.
There might be 11 matches between Tom and
Tom told us Monday at Quarterback Club that they're good friends.
I know.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if he was being facetious or not.
I wasn't either, but I've since seen a couple of other interviews with him, both on TV and online, and he starts out each one of the interviews with saying the same thing. My good friend, Jay Robinson.
You bet.
Isn't he a joy to interview, Tom Brady? Either one.
He's great.
He's a character.
It just never gets old.
I asked him Monday. He sat down with me and Pat before he spoke Monday, and I said, so I don't suppose you and Mark Perry from Illinois are going to be having tea anytime soon. He goes, he said, that's no big deal.
It's the heat of the moment.
And I said, well, Mark Perry's still pretty young. He said, I'm pretty young too. Okay.
When I was trying to arrange for him to come Monday and talk to quarterback, we always have a parking space right in front of the Hy-Vee van, and I reminded him that there'd be a parking space. He said, give the parking space to somebody else. He said, I want to park someplace and walk there.
That's him.
Exercise.
Are you working off some energy?
That's him. And what was the one line he said about the heavyweights? Most heavyweights are big fat mama's boys.
Yeah, he called them mama's boys.
Mama's boys.
Bobby Telford is not a mama's boy.
He's a piece of work. He really is. So, let's get to recruiting. Joe, how much time do we have left?
You have 23 minutes.
22 minutes, give or take.
Take the floor, Rob.
A week from today is the National Letter of Intent Signing Day for high school football seniors. We have here the foremost expert, Rob Howe from Scout.com, is here to enlighten us.
I would like to ask a question. What about the running back from Wisconsin?
The junior that
Junior.
committed this week,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Torrin Young. Yeah, I mean, they started to move on him this fall, and he came in and visited for one game and then was back at junior day, and Iowa offered, and he committed the next day. And he's,
Doesn't he live right outside Madison?
yeah, I can't remember the name of his high school, but it's, he's within 10 miles of the
Is he
Madison.
in Monona?
That sounds
I
like
think
it.
that's
so.
what it is.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, the two verbal commitments that Iowa has in the 2016 class are both from Wisconsin. Menominee, Wisconsin's quarterback, Nate Stanley.
He had another year left at high school?
Yeah.
They both
Yeah.
do, yeah. They're both 2016.
They're both juniors.
Oh.
That seems to be the theme now. The recruiting clock just keeps speeding up.
Yeah.
I'm amazed to see high school freshmen getting offers and committing. High school sophomores are committing a lot earlier now. Ohio State has 4 high school sophomores committed already. 3 of them are 4-stars. But, I mean, you think about, you go out a lot of times, I remember when I played a long time ago, most sophomores didn't even play varsity.
No.
And now these kids are getting offered, during their sophomore years and committing that early. That's
They have had this junior day for several years. How many athletes come to that? It seems like there was a big crowd this
there
year.
are about 50 or 60 there this
Is that
year.
typical?
Yeah, it grows each year because now instead of it just being juniors, which was the original idea,
Yeah.
there's sophomores and freshmen that sometimes come to
really?
these things. Yeah,
Including
it's still
this sophomore that's committed to Iowa, uncommitted, and then recommitted.
Oh, the big kid from
Ron
West
Harris.
Union.
That's the gift that keeps on giving.
He's a huge.
He's going to be
a
fun
huge
to
kid.
cover for 2 more years.
He's good for internet traffic, too.
Yeah.
Is he?
Well, I mean, if you keep committing and decommitting,
Oh,
it's a
yeah,
fluid
yeah.
situation.
So how many high school seniors does Kirk have verbal commitments from at this point?
17.
And do you expect there'll be a few more than that?
I think he would like to get right around the low 20 mark. Kirk and Phil Parker visited 2 kids last night in Michigan. Eddie Wilson, both in the Detroit area, and Mike Ojemudia, who's a safety. The first kid I named is a defensive tackle who's committed to Purdue. They had in-homes with both of these kids. Wilson is committed to Purdue, not this past weekend, but the weekend before, and had scheduled the official visit here for the following weekend. When he went to Purdue, they offered him a scholarship. He committed right away. He canceled the visit here. But it's a verbal commitment. It
Right.
doesn't end the game. And if he's still listening, you still have to talk, and that's why Kirk and Phil went yesterday to visit him in his home, and he told me last night that he'll decide by tomorrow whether or not he's going to visit here, and that would be this weekend.
That'd
This is
have to be this
It's the
weekend.
last weekend that you can visit, and they had offered Miles Fox from Georgia this past weekend on his official visit. He's an Old Dominion commitment. He decided he wanted to stick with Old Dominion closer to home. His parents can see him play, whatever. So I think that kind of precipitated moving a little quicker on Eddie Wilson.
Okay.
Moving a little further with him, and he's still listening. So, and then Michael Ojemudia, that's hard to say.
Yeah, you do it well, though.
A safety from Farmington Hills, Michigan, Harrison High School. He was here this past weekend with a group of. This was a really big weekend this past weekend because a lot of the verbal commitments, the Paulsons, Jake Newborg, guys we've all known that have been committed, for Brian Boyle, they were all here.
How about this Reef kid?
Reef, he was here.
He's enrolling in school.
He's in school.
Yeah,
Oh, my.
Oh,
He and
And
Brett
James Daniels and Brett Wachter.
and James Daniels, all
Three
three
of
of those guys are already enrolled in school.
They'll be in
And will be here
spring
for
ball.
spring
Is that
practice.
right?
James
Yeah.
Daniels did, too?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I think James Daniels was probably envisioning playing
He's
next
thinking
fall.
about maybe getting on the field.
And we
this year.
said both Jake Rudock and C.J. Bethany are in class.
They're in class, too?
Good to hear.
So that story will get to continue through spring ball and maybe into the fall. Yay, quarterback.
You guys don't mind that. There's a lot to talk about.
Was that the junior kicker that apparently they've offered? Was he here for junior day?
He was here for junior day.
And who is he?
That is,
From Michigan.
why am I forgetting his name? I just wrote a story on him last night.
Are we talking field goal, place kicker,
This-
punt?
Both. He's determined to do both, and the schools that Penn State's offered him, Western
Throwback.
Michigan's offered him, and Miami of Ohio's offered him, and they all have told him, from what he told me, that they will want him to do both. And he's going. He was here for a game. He was here for junior day. He was at Penn State for a game. He's going back to Penn State this weekend, and he seems to be zeroed in on those 2 schools. So that could be where the.
Does it look like we're going to go through the 2015 season with the same punters? Do you see any
There's,
punter out there?
There's the kid that I anticipate walking on, Colton Rastetter from Gutenberg. Is it Clayton Ridge?
Yeah.
He's officially visiting this
He's a punter?
weekend. He's a punter, and they've told him he could come in and compete. So there you go. So if you have Dylan Kidd, Connor Kornbrath, and then this kid coming from high school, but it's definitely an area I think needs to be shored up
No kidding.
in a big way. That was a big hindrance for
Oh,
us this
it-
year.
yes.
You only need to watch Alabama play to see
Yeah.
what a difference a really classy punter can make to your game.
Well, think about what you're paying to have 2 out-of-state punters on scholarship.
Well, I guess,
It's a
yeah.
lot of money for 2 punters.
Yeah.
In Iowa, we were spoiled with some really good punters
Yeah.
in the Kirk Ferentz era.
And a lot of them were walk-ons.
We really have been. And you think about what a punter means to a football team. Think back to Hayden Fry's first couple of years here. His first offer for a scholarship was Reggie Roby, wasn't it?
Yeah, Dan McCurney and Hayden
Yeah.
went up there and
And that guy made such a difference those first 2 years when they didn't have a whole lot else.
They had defense and a punter.
Well, he did for the Miami Dolphins, too.
Well, yeah.
Quinn Norden, that's the kid's name.
Okay, that's right.
Popped back in, I'm getting old.
Quinn?
Quinn Norden, Nordin, from
Norden.
Rockford, Michigan. Rockford High School.
What's he play?
He's
Punter.
the kicker punter that
Yeah.
they offered yesterday. Penn State offered him the day before. And interestingly, the Michael Ojemudia, he visited here, got an offer from us, and he was committed to Eastern Illinois, decommitted, then got
Eastern
home.
Michigan, wasn't it?
Eastern Michigan, my bad, and got home Sunday night, and Indiana offered as soon as he got home. And now he's considering visiting there this weekend. It's,
Didn't he tell
as
you-
hard as it is to win on the field, it's really hard to win in recruiting because they're just coming at these kids.
Didn't he tell you he had some concerns about distance?
Yes. But Bloomington's really, how much closer to
We figured it out. It's about
Detroit,
150 miles
yeah.
closer. about an
Because he's
hour.
in the Detroit area, so Detroit to Iowa City,
Couple
Detroit to
hours,
Bloomington.
2.5 hours maybe.
But I think Rob would agree, not to put words in your mouth, but recruiting is the biggest thing, the biggest challenge
Yeah.
facing Kirk right now.
Yeah.
Everything else, facilities, everything else is in place.
And
So-
then the hard thing with that too is, we talk about the staff turnover in terms of how it affects the kids that are already here. You're also, they shifted their recruiting areas and different guys, and, Lester Erb was in Chicago for all those years and did really well. Now you're putting, Brian Ferentz and Jim Reed in that area and asking them to build those relationships that Lester already had.
Yeah.
So it's a process.
Do we have any 4-stars on this verbal commitment list?
James Daniels is a 4-star.
Is that it?
What's he play?
Aren't the Paulsons?
No, they're not. Oh, yeah, they are for us.
For you guys they are.
It varies from
Is it like
The
Drew
Iowa
Cook?
kids,
Drew Cook's a 4-star for ESPN, right?
besides,
Daniels is a center.
Yes.
okay.
Could also play guard. He reminds me a little bit of Austin Blythe.
Especially in our system.
Sure.
They-
I think Drew's one of the most intriguing prospects in the class.
I
I mean,
do
I'm
too.
not just saying that because he's from Iowa City, and I know his dad,
I would
but
agree.
Well,
6'5",
I agree with you.
6'5", 230, and just watching him last night, I mean, people talking about he looks like a tight end. I mean, he looks like a defensive end, as big as he's getting right now. But I'm very intrigued by him at playing quarterback for Iowa. I really am eager to see what he and Ryan Boyle both can do.
6'6".
Because they give Iowa a dimension they don't have with Rudock and Beathard. They can't. When the play breaks down with Iowa's quarterbacks now, it's over. With Drew, he can run. You've seen him.
Oh, he's
Yes.
quick.
He's
Oh,
quick.
yeah. Yes.
He's explosively quick.
Marv said he's a better athlete than he was at this stage, but longer, leaner, quicker. Said he just had longer arms and he said he's just more skilled.
Right.
But Marv had that knack for catching the football in traffic.
And you can develop guys as passers, too.
True.
I mean,
You can't develop him as runners,
no.
though. You either
Well,
have it
if
or
you
you
can't
don't.
move, you can't move. And we saw last year, Jake Rudock at the beginning of the year was able to move and did a lot of things
Yeah.
with his legs.
Good point.
Then he hurt his legs and was kind of a sitting duck quite often this year.
Yeah.
But if Drew Cook
unfortunately.
was from another state, at 6'5", 230, and ESPN was ranking him as a 4-star, Iowa fans would be all. But since he's here, we just kind of take
You
him for
say
granted.
6'5".
Oh, he's an easy 6'5".
He's 6'6".
Drew now, I mean, yeah, maybe he is 6'6". They list him at 6'5", and I think his weight right now is around 220, 225. But Marv was saying he'd like him a little lighter when he gets in, about 215 when he gets in for practice. Well, have a little more speed out of the backfield. Because like I said, that's the one thing that's going to help Drew is his ability to run.
So you were at the game last night against Wilton.
Yes.
Have you seen him play basketball, Rob?
I have, but in the primetime league. I haven't seen him play in high school, but he holds his own against college kids in the primetime league, so.
I
He could
think
play
he
Division
could be
I basketball.
Division One. You bet.
Definitely.
Basketball.
Feeney, John told me that someone had told him, that good friends with Tom Davis, that Davis would have offered him as a sophomore to play basketball.
And Anthony Nelson, the defensive end that's committed from Waukee, that flipped from Iowa State, he had like 3 Division I basketball offers. And Matt
Nelson.
Nelson from last year, another defensive end, had. So they're getting some good athletes
Yeah.
in these classes. And I think what affected this class, and I think the negative Nellies are harping on the star ratings and these certain kids in this class not having offers from other
Right.
BCS level schools. Well, there's some truth to that with some
there
of the
is.
kids, but with the Paulsons, Iowa was their only offer. Iowa State would take them in a heartbeat.
Oh, yeah.
Nebraska
Nebraska,
would take them.
you bet.
Wisconsin would take them. But, you're not going to use recruiting resources on kids that are, pretty much locked into going to Iowa.
And these kids are both wrestlers too.
Yes, very good wrestlers.
Very good wrestlers. One's heavyweight and one is the weight below that. Two.
Well, they used to take turns last year. One would
Is that
wrestle.
right?
Yeah. They used to just, and they were ranked first and second, I
Does
think.
Drew have other offers?
Well, Drew's,
See,
I
that's
know
another-
Stanford was very interested in Drew, but
Really?
basically Drew made it, he's a Hawkeye. I mean, he basically ended the recruiting, but if Drew wanted to have more offers and if he was like putting feelers out there, he could have. Stanford was very interested.
So that's why it's not exactly black and white when you talk about these kids and what offers. Jake Newborg is another kid that committed before his junior year to Iowa.
Where's he from?
West Lyon, Inwood
good.
West
That's
Lyon.
right. He's
And they're
good.
looking at him as a defensive tackle.
He played against Regina this year in the
Yes.
state, was it the championship
Number
game?
58.
Iowa State would take him in a second.
He was a
Nebraska would
beast.
take him. He's my favorite guy in this class. If
Really?
I'm
Yeah,
allowed
right?
to say that. Yeah.
What's his name?
Jake Newborg.
He played on the
Andrew.
line against
In case Mark
Regina.
watches.
Yeah.
He said Andrew too, in case Mars
You say
watched.
that because he's personable, or in
I just
terms of skill?
I just think he's a
loved him.
beast. I mean, he's a guy with, he's
He
one
was.
of those, Mike Daniels, Louis Trinket-Passat type that I could see playing defensive tackle and just has a motor that just keeps
Mitch King.
going.
That-
Yep,
yeah.
Mitch King. You got to like beat him down with a lead pipe to get him to stop.
So is he the kind of guy that might play next year as a true freshman?
It will be tough just because of the depth. That's one of the positions.
Is he
where-
linebacker in college?
No.
No,
He'll be
defensive
defensive
tackle.
tackle.
Yeah, they
Remember,
look
they have Darian Cooper coming back next
And
year.
they have Jaleel Johnson coming back,
Faith
Faith
Akokity.
Akokity coming back, Nathan Budgeta coming back.
Frank
There's a lot
Russell.
of depth at tackle next year, so I think they can afford to redshirt him. But, because he's not really going to help you on special teams. So with like a Ben Neiman this year or Miles Taylor, if they can help you on special teams, sometimes it's good to get their feet wet. So when they do play the next year, they don't have the bright
Can you
lights.
talk a little bit about Neiman's brother?
Yeah, he got offered on junior day too, and he's a similar type player. And their dad, who's from Iowa, I can't remember which town he's
Chris
from.
Neiman, where's he from?
He's the defensive coordinator
Is it
at
from
Northern
Kenora?
Illinois,
Yeah.
and he's originally from Iowa.
Is it Panorama or Panora?
It sounds
And didn't he go to Drake or?
Joe?
he,
But he's got a lot of
Coached
Iowa
him.
connections. He's got a lot of Iowa
but
connections.
Ben was
Is he a
committed to.
linebacker also?
Yeah, but he's a guy that could maybe even grow into a defensive end if things pass. He's still only a junior, so they'll see where it goes with him from there. But Ben was committed to Northern Illinois and then camped here. Was it this past summer?
Yeah.
Two summers ago.
No, he was a true freshman playing this year.
No, when they offered him.
Oh, when they offered
that
him?
was
That
the
was
summer
yeah.
before he camped here. We offered, and then he had that decision: does he stay and play? Because
That's
he
right.
was committed to Northern Illinois as a wide receiver, and then came here and played linebacker, and that gives you an indication of what kind of athlete he is. And his
No
brother's
kidding.
similar. His brother's a really good athlete who, and Iowa's good at finding athletes, and then once they get them here, finding a position that they can play or suits them best. And I think he fits into that mold as well.
Okay, so day after signing day, a week from tomorrow, do you think we're going to hear anything about coaching changes at Iowa? Not necessarily somebody leaving the program,
I
moving
handle the
around.
recruiting, you handle the coaching.
There you go. There you go.
I don't.
Okay.
I could maybe see some shuffling, maybe something different with special teams, reassigning, but I've heard nothing to suggest that Greg Davis is.
But Kirk has already said he doesn't anticipate any changes.
No,
There
but-
might be some internal.
But people are reading the way he said that. There's a lot of people reading into how he didn't exactly say, oh, everyone's going to be back. People are just so wishing that there's changes. They're reading into anything. Right now, I don't think there's going to be. Do you?
Based on, and this, I don't know if it's, an exact indication, but all of these assistants are out recruiting right now. You see them with pictures with them with recruits
Yeah.
and things like
I've
that
seen
in
those.
Texas and Michigan and Florida. They're working, they're still working to
I
think
still
that-
think we got the best line coach in the country.
Oh, Reese
Reese?
Morgan? Oh, yeah, I mean,
I think he's wonderful.
and I don't think fans are talking when they want changes. They're talking about Greg Davis. Fans want Greg Davis gone. They just want him out. And,
Easy scapegoat. They wanted our former offensive coordinator out,
oh, yeah.
and he went.
And he left.
Yep.
And now they'd love to have him back, but
There's talk that he may take the wide receiver job at Florida.
I'd heard that.
I read that.
Pretty interesting.
Well, Joe Philbin was a little iffy, and they re-upped him for
Yeah.
a year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's not a lot of security
Gotta
in the
begin
NFL
to
when you
look
get that
around.
when you get that year contract.
NFL, not for long.
Not for long unless you're Bill
Players
Belichick.
and
It's
coaches.
unusual that you mentioned Joe Philbin. I I was reading last night a letter that he sends out at Christmas time it was written by his wife. And it has all his kids. And he has one son, Matt, who committed suicide.
Did he, I don't think he committed suicide, did he? He fell through the lake up there.
He was at Green Bay, right?
It wasn't Green Bay, it was when he was
He
at
was
Green
coaching
Bay.
at Green
It was
Bay.
at Whitewater, I think.
I don't remember the
I think he was-
exact circumstances, but
He
he
was
did die.
crossing a lake after drinking,
Yeah.
and he went under. I don't know if they ever determined.
Well, I don't know. The paper that I had said didn't mention that because that was too soon. Yeah, but that was 1902. I mean,
2002?
2002.
Been that long already?
How long ago?
Yeah.
Well, when he got the,
Well, he was the Iowa line coach in 2002.
That was his last year, right? Didn't he
Right.
move after
That's
that
right.
to
Right.
Green Bay?
Gone after that. Yeah.
Joe, how we doing on time? Got
But anyhow,
about 4 minutes left, so.
But tell us about Higdon, the running back from Sarasota.
Like him a lot, and
What's his first name?
Karan,
That's right.
Karon, and with Markel Smith not making it in academically,
Mm-hmm.
that puts even more of an emphasis on what Karan Higdon may be able to give next year and beyond, because we're getting a little long in the tooth with running backs.
Yeah.
They're getting older quicker, and we lost two this past year with Wiseman and Bullock. So
grade points have changed.
Grade point?
Yes.
Or
admission standards.
admission
Yes.
standards,
Yeah.
there we go.
Yeah, there was talk about, not to get off on the tangent, but Gary Anderson at Wisconsin came out and said that was one of the main reasons he left to go to Oregon State was the difficult.
Big
And I
time
respect
stuff,
Wisconsin for that, for
Yeah.
not budging.
Yeah, more power to
And
him.
why didn't he know the specifics
him.
before he took the job? You should know what you can and can't do. They wouldn't budge on JUCO guys, and I respect them for that.
Karan Higdon is a running back.
Right.
Who do you compare him to in style or size?
Reminds me a little bit of like an Albert Young type, kind of low to the center of gravity, not a burner, but a guy that really has good vision.
That brings back good
solid.
memories.
And Torrin Young reminds me a little bit of Albert Young as well, the kid we talked about earlier, this 2016 kid from outside of
How about
Madison.
Willie Fleming?
He's not old enough to remember.
I've read about Willie Fleming. I don't think this kid has the speed of Willie Fleming.
Oh, he was.
There aren't many Willie Flemings
Oh.
out there.
No.
How about receivers? Or do we have receivers coming in?
Yeah, there's Germanic Smith, who's given Iowa fans heartburn throughout the process when he tweets that he's looking at other
did-
schools and his mom wants him to go here and whatever. But he's from Texas. I really like his upside. I think he's a kid that could develop really nicely. And then Adrian Falconeer from Florida. Another kid that had a really good senior year and has quite a bit of upside. Am I forgetting another?
Emmanuel
receiver?
Ogwo.
Emmanuel Ogwo, who's really a track guy
Oh.
who's just learning the position, so he's kind of a blank canvas and
Does he have a pair of hands?
needs speed. Yes, he can catch, but it's still, they're going to have to develop him, but he's got that raw ability, the speed that, we need to get into our offense.
Well, there's a lot to look forward to. Unfortunately, we're out of time. We've been visiting with Rob Howe from Scout.com and Pat Harty. You can hear both these guys on KCJJ Radio, AM 1630, every Saturday morning from 8 to 10 a.m. Pat is also on KCJJ every Monday and Friday morning at 9 a.m. We're going to be following you a week from today because I know you're going to be busy. It's going to be
Kirk's got a press
nuts.
conference at 3 in the afternoon, so
3, huh?
that's when he finally can talk about all these kids once they sign their letters.
The two of them usually do, I assume are doing again this year, on Saturday morning after signing day, a 2-hour show on KCJJ.
As Captain calls it, a
covering just
recruiting
recruiting.
extravaganza.
That'll be the 7th, I believe.
You're going to have Alan
Correct.
Crew from Scout in.
And we'll lead off at 8 o'clock, so tune in right away. We're going to have Seth Wallace, the recruiting coordinator from Iowa, will be on with us right
Know
at the
that
start
name.
of the show, and
Yeah.
he can break down,
That's
it's good once
great.
you get them signed, and you can ask him, the specifics of how the class came together.
We're going to try
And
to
fairly
get.
often you have 2 or 3 signees.
We're going to try to get Marvin Drew. I'd like to get Marvin Drew in too. I'd like to get Drew in, and then maybe some out-of-state guys.
Say, is
Earl, we're going to have to wrap it
Okay.
up. We're out of time. Sorry about that. You've been watching Sports Opinion. You can tune in every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. or Sunday night at 6 p.m. on Channel 18. You can go to patv.tv and see this show or any of the other older shows, or you can just go to my Facebook page or Pat White's Facebook page, because I
Don't
post
go
them on there.
Don't go there.
I post them there, so it's there. And anyway, we're out of time. Thanks for tuning in. On behalf of Pat Harty, Pat White, Earl Murphy, Rob Howe, I'm Dirk Keller, thanking you for watching. And remember, either you're a Hawk or you're not. Go Hawks. Whoop 'em good Saturday.
Say what?